Bill Spadea, welcome to Fireside.
Ryan, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I appreciate you coming. I met you over at Pat Gagliano,
Yeah.
Finished Basement's house.
Great event.
It was a very great event. Ended up talking to you and your staff, and I said, hey, why don't you come on the podcast? Right away, you said, absolutely. This podcast is predicated on turning around and helping the next guy or girl in line. And it was mainly about helping more people get to business ownership. I saw COVID go on. I know you were all over the radio against a lot of what was going on. And it really hurt my heart to see people like cops, my wife's a teacher, and others have to go get this vaccine that they were afraid of, and rightfully so, because they needed to continue to pay their bills, right? And I said, you know what, I'm launching a podcast, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show people that if this guy, Ryan Robbins from Bricktown, can go and make 7 figures and create a business for himself, so can you. And I started interviewing my clients and my friends and taking people's stories in, like Pat and Nino at Finished Basements. And it's kind of evolved.
Yeah.
Now it's become a little bit of a political show, because politics do matter when it comes to small business. And I've listened to you. I like what you're about. I'm very interested to get to know some of the other candidates as well, but I really just want to get to know who is Bill and what you're all about, and then we'll get into some questions for Jersey. How's that sound?
I love it. I'm ready.
So Cherry Hill, born and raised.
Graduated Cherry Hill East in 1987.
I was born in
Born in
80s.
Camden. I was born at Lady Lourdes Hospital in Camden.
There you go.
You don't walk during the day now.
Yeah, a little nervous.
It's a shame.
Well, maybe you can clean that up.
Well, we can. I mean, you know, Camden County, when I was a kid, so I grew up, right, 70s, early 80s, it was a Republican county. Mm-hmm. And I say this in speeches all the time. I've talked about it on the air, because people take it for granted. They're like, oh, that's a red state, it stays. That's a red county, it stays. No, it doesn't.
No.
You have to work hard every day. It's no different. Look, politics, running a business, running a family, running a bank account, you've got to be present. You've got to be engaged all the time. So over a 20-year period, the Democrats got smart. They're like, well, we'll let you have your presidential election. We'll let you have your gubernatorial election. Oh,
Camden.
yeah, so we're talking about Camden County. So the Democrats got smart. They're like, all right, you're going to win presidential elections. You're going to win the governor's office. They focused on Board of Education. All the while telling people, don't politicize the Board of Ed. It's not political. Meanwhile, they're pouring money into these races. They're recruiting people. And what happened? Over 20, 30 years, the entire state turned over. At one point in 2000, there was a Republican governor and a Republican Senate and Assembly. Veto-proof majority. By 2001, it had all turned on its ear, and people think it just happened on one election. No, it didn't. It's happened for 20 years. And now you go to Camden County, Mercer County, all Republican counties, 70s, 80s. Now they're really blue. Now the good news is it's changing. Donald Trump had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, 50% of the counties voted for Trump. Uptick around the entire country.
State county went red.
And Jersey, what, 4 points off from flipping?
Yeah, just under 5. How about that?
And I think someone like you with, you know, doubling down on what you believe in. But we're going to get into that in a minute, as well as education a little bit deeper. So what'd you do? You went off to Boston, you told me?
Yeah.
Boston fan?
So I graduated 87, and I went to Boston University. Somehow I got in. Then there I was.
Where's your looks?
It was, yeah, look, there's always a little bit of luck involved, right? Timing, luck. But anyway, I love Boston. I mean, I was there for 4 years. I worked actually in, I always had a political bug. Loved politics, was a history major. In 1988, I was a volunteer for Jack Kemp. So every weekend, we'd get into my buddy's old beat-up pickup truck, drive up to Dunbarton, New Hampshire. There was a place there for volunteers.
Hampshire's beautiful.
I love New Hampshire. It's great. And Kemp was a cool candidate. It was a great entrance into politics. But you know, when I graduated BU in 91, it was, so let's see, George Bush was president. He got elected in 88. We had no idea what was coming. I had a couple job offers, and I went in the Marines. I enlisted, went to Paris Island.
How old?
So let's see, that was 91. I graduated, so was I 21, 22?
So I got a random question. So you're a history buff.
Yeah.
Was any part of our history lied to us as Americans?
Possibly a lot of it.
Just give me a top thing for you.
Well,
rubs you wrong.
There's recent and there's longer term. I think you go back, I believe that the biggest lie that's been perpetrated, we hear RFK talking about it now, and it was the food pyramid. Mm-hmm. What's healthy for us? You know, now they had a whole generation of people convinced that if you were eating your food with canola oil and corn oil and vegetable oil, it was safe. And then they tell us that all the medicines from Big Pharma are safe. Yet we got a bunch of kids walking around. Our obesity rate is among the highest in the world. We've got drug addiction, depression, suicide. And no one wants, I was talking about this today, someone was challenging the vaccines. I said, look, my kids are vaccinated. I do question, I didn't 5 years ago, but I do now. How come there are 70 shots? How many shots these kids take? And I think that we've been lied to a lot on food and medicine over the past decades. And that is really, to me, a big source of the change coming now.
Yeah.
My family and I, we don't eat seed oils. Somebody today tweeted, they're like, the world has changed. Trump got elected, yeah, but there's beef tallow for sale at Costco. Like, game changer, baby.
It's
That's
over.
it. It's easy to fall down the conspiracy theories. What did the government know about the Kennedy assassination? Tucker Carlson does a good job digging into stuff like that. And I think to a large part, we have to accept that government lies.
Yeah.
They lied leading up to Vietnam. How many lies were told about weapons of mass destruction leading up to Iraq? A lot of lies.
They're also on a different perch. So
They
unless
see
we're
things.
up there with them, and
You're not gonna see it.
Yeah, you don't know
Yeah.
what they're dealing with.
But I think the big lies, I think the lies got too big. And that was the Trump phenomenon. The average person, you said it earlier, like you went from business into politics. Most people don't want to be involved in politics. They don't care. They barely want to watch the news. I would love to get back to a time where it didn't matter who your president was, didn't matter who your governor was, didn't matter who your congressman was, because it was just a matter of fact. They're doing their job, but basically I'm left alone to raise my family, raise my kids, and start my business and flourish. And that has not happened.
Yeah, it's felt like, especially when COVID happened, it felt like we're under attack. And you have kids.
Yeah.
At the time, I just had my son. He was 6 months old, and then 2 years later, I had my daughter, who's now 2.
Yeah.
Almost 3. You're sitting there going, I'm a guy, raising these kids into what world, what society?
Right.
And Jersey was one of the states that was super restrictive with Murphy, and
Well, it lasted 2 years.
yeah, it was ridiculous.
And I say it, I've said it on the radio for years. I mean, look, they threatened me with termination. I've been sued. I've been threatened with physical violence, all from day one, attacking the COVID narrative. And now we're finding out, but you know what? For the third of businesses that closed during COVID and never reopened, the kids that took their own life, the kids that now have irreversible damage, whether it's from the vaccine or it's because they were isolated for 2 years, special needs kids isolated at home.
It's
absolutely horrible.
And I'm not running for any office, so I keep it real. Someone should fucking pay for that. And I know that there's a lot of Americans, and there's a lot of people here, right in Jersey,
That's right.
that are sick and tired of the lies. Education, all of it. We're sick and tired of it. It needs to change.
Ryan, look at Judy Persicilli, the head of the health department, who pushed the vaccines, pushed the closures. And then you find out that we lost, 8 to 10,000 senior citizens because forget about what disease was coming through. You had sick people being pushed back into long-term care facilities in these closed environments. And you wonder why you subjected all these vulnerable people to other people who were sick. Absolute madness. I mean, every year leading up to COVID, the flu was killing tens of thousands of people. Vulnerable people need to be protected.
Yep.
And we didn't do it in this state. We didn't do it. So yes, there should be accountability, number one, because you've got to send a message that government should never be allowed to be in a position to roll over your rights. We have a constitution. I'll never forget Governor Murphy going on, I don't know whether it was Fox or CNN, but he gave that interview, and he said the Bill of Rights was above his pay grade. That's disgusting.
Yeah, that is super troubling to me, and I'm sure a ton of other people from New Jersey and America. So getting back to your story, because we're both weaving a little bit, went off to the Marines. How was that experience for you?
Great experience. I mean, I went to Parris Island, so I did what was called a 4x4 reserve program. So I went in because I was college grad as a private first class, and I got out of corporal. It was an 8-year total stint, but I did all my training. I went to Parris Island, went to Camp Lejeune, Camp Johnson actually, did infantry school, went to Fort Sill, and did some nights on the gun line, artillery. But it was an experience you can't duplicate that.
What did you take most from it?
What I took most is that the guys serving their country are there fighting for the guy next to them.
Yeah.
That, we see a lot of rah-rah stuff. The reality is these are people that they want to do something that's bigger than them.
Do you think you were fighting next to somebody who was maybe a Democrat and you were a Republican?
And nobody cared.
And nobody cared.
You know what nobody asked?
Yeah.
Nobody talked politics. No one cared. And I think that's a big takeaway. For me, look, I missed both wars. I was in college. I was a senior in college during the first Gulf War, and I enlisted on my birthday. This was 1991, but the Marine Corps delayed it until I graduated. Now, I thought they were doing me a favor. Turns out they just wanted the college grads of Parris Island so they could push them into being officers, and I didn't want it. I wasn't looking for a military career.
Yeah.
So 99 came. My daughter was 2, and my contract was up, and I decided not to re-up. And then, of course, 9/11 happens 2 years later. So a lot of the guys I served with went to war.
Went to war. After that, where'd you go? What's the next phase of your life?
So 92, I worked for George Bush Sr., so I'll age myself, right? The first. And I was fresh out of the Marines, fresh off active duty, I should say. And I was hired to be the National Youth Director. What a cool job that was. Just traveling with the Secret Service, being there. My job was to mobilize crowds of kids to create this image that there was a youthful support for the president. And the rallies were fun. It was exciting. I loved it. But it was pretty obvious the writing was on the wall. The Clinton campaign, we were on 15th Street in Washington. White House is right down the street. And the Clinton campaign was across the way, and they would put the poll numbers up in big numbers and big white paper, so we'd have to look at it every morning. You know what? That was
Politics is
a different
dirty.
time. Yeah, but it was great competition.
Yeah, it was fun.
Now they're crazy. They threaten to kill you. They want to shut your business down.
It seems to be on one side of the party. It doesn't seem to be on the other, but I'm sure there's extremism on both sides.
Yeah, but I think, we were talking about it earlier, and a lot of people, if you ask somebody, if a Democrat operative says, hey, will you put this Harris sign on your lawn, a Harris supporter would put it on the lawn. Mm-hmm. You ask a Trump supporter, they're going to think about it.
Of course.
I don't know. My neighbor might throw something at me. I don't feel like getting the stairs.
They're going to break my window. They're going to egg my house. They're going to.
It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. Businesses, never afraid to go a little left the minute you're coming a little right. And truth is, Trump has changed the definition. I mean, when I grew up, 70s, 80s, you're talking about some of these counties that were Republican. There were Reagan Republicans and conservatives, and you could check the boxes. Then there were Democrats, and they were liberal. They wanted to spend more, and they were okay with higher taxes and a bigger involvement with government. But Trump changed it where he broke through the party lines and said, no, I'm going to talk to you as dad, as a mom, as a clerk, as a bus driver, as a nurse, as a firefighter. That just shattered the entire political setup.
I think you're sitting there going, I can relate to this guy. Even though he has billions of dollars and he's this guy all over TV, for some reason I have this connection with him.
He understands the struggle. We used to talk about that part of the disconnect in politics is people think that it's ideology that's going to drive the average voter. No way. It's they're worried about the potholes at the end of the street because it cost them $300 to put a new tire on their car last week. No. That's what they're thinking about. They're like, and then it was on steroids during COVID, because now I can't tell you how many teachers call the show and say one of the worst things for them is when they didn't take the jab because they were worried about all that was being talked about. They rushed this thing. Yep. They'll tell you, the medical community will tell you, 10, 15 years to get these vaccines to market. This was in 10 minutes, and now everybody's taking it. It would have been fine if it was voluntary, but it was forced. And if you didn't take it, you had to swab twice a week. Teachers were actually tortured through this entire time.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, you said Trump talked directly to the teacher, to the janitor, to the police officer. I think you're already doing that. You've been doing that for 15 years with your show. And I'm curious, and I think I have an answer for it, but do you think that's what sets you apart from Jack? Jack's been in the system. He's ran 3 times. And again, I don't know Jack personally, but someone who's run 3 times and not had success yet, why aren't we going with somebody who's already connecting with the regular voter who showed up for Trump?
So a couple things on that. First, the advantage I have is I've been listening to people. So I've been on the morning show for 10 years, and it's been the #1 show since I took over the #1 show, and I've been blessed that the audience has exploded, especially over the past 4 years. My market share in some of these counties is north of 15, which is unheard of.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And you're talking about a station that has 1.5 million people that are tuned in. So it's a conversation with people that I can listen. So when I hear people calling, they're not calling about gun control and abortion and things like. No, they're talking about cost of living. They're talking about, why is my rent
I can't buy this
40%
house
higher? Why? How? My producer is a 30-something now with 2 kids. Her and her husband are effectively working 2 jobs. They run a business. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford to buy a house. So the
brings up a good question, though, real quick.
Yeah.
So affordable housing. What do you look to do in the state of New Jersey to help a couple like that stay here?
We got to make sure they're earning more money, paying less taxes, and that there's an incentive for them to get into that home. The problem is government has defined affordable housing not as something that you or I could afford to buy, but something that government will mandate through the Mount Laurel decisions. And it's not affordable housing. It's high density housing. They're crushing these units into these areas where they shouldn't be. I have 2 solutions to that, and it's very practical. Number one, the first thing I'm going to do is redefine what a unit is. We're going to define prison beds. Prison cells are units. Long-term care facilities are units. Some of these houses that are sober living right now don't count. They're going to count. My goal, day one, is to get the number, because you're not going to repeal the Mount Laurel decision overnight. That's going to take some time. And you want people to have affordable housing. The market can provide that if we're creating jobs and look, there are 1.9 million small business employees in New Jersey. It's half the workforce. You give them a great opportunity to grow and give those small businesses an opportunity to give raises, to have retention, to hire more people. Housing becomes affordable because the government incentivizes the market. Right now, we're not doing that. We're telling small towns, sorry, you got to have 600 units. So a couple developers make a boatload of money and the people in the town are now crushed. What happens? Well, now I took a town of 10,000 and now it's 12,000, 13,000. Got to drill a new well. That happened in Florham Park. Got to buy new fire equipment. All of a sudden we need a new $1.5 million hook and ladder truck because we were a town of 2-story homes. Now we got 6-story high rises. They're crushing these people in. So that's a
developer
huge,
the developer
huge
made a couple $100 million.
Some of them did, right? Some of them did. So I think we have to first redefine our terms, right? So the first thing we're going to do is redefine what an affordable housing unit is, and I believe through some creative definition we can reduce the number maybe by half. Number 2, we're going to create regions. We go back to trading these credits, and I've thought a lot about this, and I've talked to a lot of lawyers. The governor's got the power to do this by executive order. We create a region. All of a sudden now, Walt Township can trade their credits to Trenton, or trade them to Camden or Newark. And then we've got to work on actually fixing the cities. I remember when Chris Christie was governor and Obama was president, they both took credit for Camden. Camden went from like the #1 murder capital of the world, dropped to, I don't know, 6, 8, whatever. Everybody's patting themselves on the back. You walk through Camden today, it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Kids can't walk to school. You can barely open a business. You're not safe after 3 o'clock.
And no kid in the United States, especially in Jersey, deserves that.
So I want to go back to your first question, though. What separates me from Jack and why this opportunity go ahead.
Well, it's growth, right? So give people more jobs and higher paying jobs.
Yes.
Help the small business owner that's stroking a check to somebody else who's buying a house, who's paying for a car, who's in the community giving back.
My guess is you're a successful guy. You know a lot of people that have already changed their address to Florida.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many multimillionaire guys have to spend 6 months and a day out of the state.
And they don't really want to.
No, they don't want
maybe
to.
2 months they would.
For a vacation,
Yeah.
yes. They want to live here. Look, there's a culture.
Well, that's
of
the whole
New
stay
Jersey.
thing. Now it's 65. The whole stay thing that he's trying to put together.
Think about the fact that we have a government that enforces this. It's so bad in New Jersey that 7 out of 10 moves are out of state. We have the highest outmigration of any state in the country.
My tax is $30,000 of property tax.
Yeah, I'm paying about that in Princeton. It's nuts. 30 grand. And
It's
by the way,
insane.
it's up 20%.
And I got to pay for school,
years.
and I got to pay for private school because I don't trust their public education.
And I don't have kids in school, and I'm paying that.
Yeah.
Well,
it's half the taxes is the education system, which is corrupt.
It's between 52 and 70%, depending on the town that you're in. Here's the problem. Republicans for decades keep saying, we got to fix the school funding formula. I'm like, hold on. You got to fix what we're spending the money on. Why do we have superintendents that are getting a $40,000 bonus on top of a $250,000 salary, and in the same district, You've got 4 principals all making north of $175,000. How many 6-figure bureaucrats do you need to run a school system with a couple thousand kids? We can run a big company on one CEO.
If anything,
and
I think that money should be given to the teachers more, who are trying
100%.
to make a living, and they're there with the kids every day, spending their own money on food, snacks.
Well, the $75 they're pulling out of their pocket every week. Teachers
Easy.
A week, right? And that's on a low end for school supplies. Absolutely outrageous. And I don't think any teacher, you ask every teacher across the board, I don't care if they're making $85,000, $90,000 a year, not enough to live in this state.
It's not enough.
They're working second jobs. The challenge is the Republicans lost that narrative because when Christie got elected, they went after the NJEA, which was smart. The NJEA is the problem. They hold these teachers hostage and they spend millions and millions of dollars on forced revenue that they take from the teachers out of their pockets, and they spend it on politics.
During COVID, it was disgusting what they did to scare the teachers into taking the vaccines and then using their testings and controlling the narrative. It's like, are you guys operatives for the Dems and the vaccines, or are you a fucking union rep?
Now you got the head of the NJEA running for governor.
Yeah, it's
and the NJEA is spending millions of dollars through their political operation, however it is,
their PAC,
promoting this guy. Like, well, he's our guy. I'm like, how? It's people, people
need to wake up.
They say, right, the Supreme Court said when they talked about pornography, well, you know it when you see it. So I think it's the same thing with political corruption. You can start to do the nuances. You know it when you see it.
Yeah, of course.
There's something broken and corrupt in this state. And the problem is you've got a bunch of woke Democrats running the show and too many weak Republicans that have done nothing. I look at the contrast with me and Jack. We kind of have a joke around the campaign circle, and that is we're essentially running against a Democrat. We're not going to have to change that much to go from primary into general. I mean, Jack supported the mandates. Jack supported still does licenses for illegals. You can make every justification you want, but Democrats and Republicans like Chitterelli help facilitate who knows how many tens of thousands of illegals have voted in our last election.
It's easy to quarterback on Monday, right? It's easy to say, hey, I would have did this or did that. But in the last election, with what Murphy did, his spending and his COVID restrictions, which again, maybe had orders from higher above. I'm not even coming at Murphy. He's leaving, right?
He's gone.
He's gone. But Jack, kind of backed that. And he didn't back Trump at the time. And I thought that was a really silly thing. You're seeing it now, but that's politics, right?
He said he didn't vote for him. He was pressed by Steve Adubato. He said, I didn't vote in the presidential election. What do you mean you didn't vote in the presidential election? They will ding most politicians if they missed a school board vote back when they were 19 years old. And he got up there and said he didn't vote in the presidential, and it's because he didn't like Trump. And I think the challenge with that, when, part of politics is also the opposite.
And this is where I think you drill down. You get on social and you get on your radio and say, no, that guy that's in South Jersey in these counties that aren't showing up, that are call it MAGA. I don't care. Label me a MAGA guy. I'm going to vote for Bill. Not because I think Jack's a bad guy. I don't really know him, but you've been there. You've ran 3 times. You're in with all these people. You were in with Christie. I want somebody who's an outsider.
How do you lose the 2017 primary against Chris Christie's lieutenant governor with his numbers in the teens? How do you lose that race? And then and the reason is because, and I've said this, when the lobbying firms and the big money in the back room creates a candidate, it's not someone who is relatable to average people on Main Street. But when those lobbying firms come around the other way and say, wait a minute, that guy's catching fire because real people are with him, completely different narrative. Now Trump's got, how many people are flocking to Mar-a-Lago saying, all right, Mr. President, we're with you now.
Zuckerberg.
Right, how about that, right? Because Trump led with people. He's like, no, I'm going to relate to these people.
You think people are going to go to jail for treason? What they did the last 4 years, 8 years?
Somebody should. Will anybody
go to jail for treason?
Will they? I'd like to say yes.
Who would be the top person on your list?
It's a good question. Whoever was involved in the Benghazi disaster, whoever was involved, who gave orders on the ground? Because forget about the top guys. They're going to be protected. They're going to they're middle managers who made decisions that hurt people. Yeah. We lost 13 hero Americans.
And they were calling
on an airstrip in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Come on. You're telling me no one was fired? No one was fired? Yep. Who made those decisions? To me, so many of these things are impeachable
What about Fauci?
offenses. But he ought to be in jail. he ought to be in prison for the rest of his life for what he did.
Seems like he's made
And he
money
lied.
off of this many times from AIDS, and again somehow in a backdoor way from.
You know, Carrie Mullis was the guy that invented the PCR test, and he died, interestingly enough, in August of 2019. Not putting on a tinfoil hat, just saying, just so happened he died right
Well,
at the
I'll put mine
outset.
on. He was definitely killed.
All right, so I'm just saying, all right, just saying, the guy died. But he was the one that battled Fauci over using this to determine infection rates on AIDS. He said, wait a minute.
Stupid.
He said it's a manufacturing replication process. But you're telling me, I've saved them. I have been mailed now. Somebody punked me because I am on the Biden list. I get almost every month, I get 4 new COVID tests. Up to last month, I still get them. I'm like, does anybody realize I could go and take an orange, the fruit, and swab it, and I've got just a chance of getting a positive
whoever sold
test.
those PCR tests that are being bought by the Biden campaign, which is just money laundering.
It's Ukraine. Look at the pardon of Hunter Biden. And now you got all these left-wing apologists getting up there saying it's a father's love. Hold on. He retroactively took it back to January 1st, 2014. Funny, we had a regime change going on in 2014 in Ukraine. So everyone knows it's dirty, it's corrupt, they're disgusted by it.
Well, I don't want to hear a word when he pardons all the J6 guys.
He should. I mean, anybody that was not involved in any violent confrontation, we all saw the tapes. We saw the tapes. And now that we know, we're going to see,
But even violent confrontations, what if it was somebody that was antagonizing, I'm just defending myself?
That's why, why have we not had a court trial? These guys have been in jail for 3 years. Where's the evidence? Because we've seen plenty of evidence that was sent out with those videos. I want to know, who are the Fed operatives that were in the crowd? The challenge is, we know, we see the tapes, right? The challenge with stuff like that is, I think most people want to move on from that. So I don't know, to be very candid with you, that I want to see Trump spend all this time going back. I'd rather say, guys, they got us. They got us. They lied. They cheated. People got hurt. People got killed. We now have a duty to the future. We can't relive the past. Does that mean someone should go to prison? Absolutely. Fauci ought to be number one. But beyond that, you're going to have a couple of the optics, right? You got to have a couple.
Because you got to move
fast.
You can't waste too much time going backwards.
He's got 18 months. He's got 18 months because you think about it. The new Congress is going to be up for re-election in 26. And that means all eyes are going to turn on that. Will the Republicans keep a close majority in 26? What's the next 2 years going to look like? And let's face it, on day one, Donald Trump becomes a lame duck because he can't run again. So to me, now, it's not about legacy. It's about policy, toughness, courage, and leadership. I don't even think it's about setting up J.D. Vance. I think J.D.'s obviously going to run for president in 28, but we should have a crowded field in 28 of the men and women that were out there standing strong against the lockdowns because, come on.
New people birthed into politics.
Look at Jay
Patrick
Bhattacharya.
David, I mean, all
Look at
these
that
guys
guy.
that are out there, putting their necks out there.
Marty McCary, Jay Bhattacharya, Sunetra Gupta from Oxford, who's it? Martin Kulldorff from Harvard. You've got really thoughtful people. Kash Patel.
Here's
Here's
Cash
this
is
guy.
great.
Love this guy.
He's great.
But again,
You ever listen to X22? You ever hear that podcast, X22?
No.
I think he's a little bit of tinfoil hat, a little bit. But Cash has been on there 3 times.
He's
very
a super
good interviews.
smart guy. I saw his interview with Glenn Beck, and they were back and forth on whether or not the CIA killed Kennedy and this and that.
Do you think they did?
I don't know. I think that they knew. They knew. Look, all through history, our government
God
knows
don't want
things,
anybody on the fence.
and they don't. You gotta go get it. I get it. Look, but the question is, let's say the CIA masterminded the whole thing. What do you do about it today? You know what you do about it today? You fix it so this can never happen again. You go in and gut the deep state. You go in and fire everyone. I asked President Trump about that. One of the things that I got hit with and have been hit with, a couple of times I have questioned some of the effectiveness of the things that some of what Trump did when he was in his first term. They use that to say, oh, you're not really with Trump. I'm like, no. Like a good American, I questioned.
Question everything.
I questioned warp speed. I questioned, how many deep state players, Chris Wray, et cetera, were allowed to stay in power all undermining Trump. So I had this conversation. Now, they start hitting me. Oh, he's not a Trump guy. Okay, whatever, guys. So I have Trump on the air, and I asked him about it. He said the same thing. He's like, a lot of these guys aren't who they show themselves to be. You got a lot of bad people out there.
And he's coming in there, and he's like
he's getting hit from
never
every
been,
side.
Yeah, it's hard.
This is not easy, and he's got a permanent federal bureaucracy. That, if there's one thing that Donald Trump can do, and it's one thing that I intend to do as governor, it is to rip out the permanent bureaucracy. You got guys that have been in government now 30 years. They don't care about the people. Some are good, a lot of good people that got into government. But for the most part, you've got a bureaucracy that no longer serves
business
people.
Administrators getting 4 different pensions because they're in 4 different shore towns, and the corruption is just disgusting.
Meanwhile, you got guys
Jersey.
down at the Jersey Shore trying to hang a shingle and make a buck, and they're getting crushed.
And crushed in
55%
taxes.
of their taxes, 55% of their income is going to the government. So you've got to fix school funding, but you can't do that unless you solve the pensions, and we have a model for it. People ask me, what are the details? Because no politician, I hear some of these guys, my opponents included, talking points. We're going to lower your real estate taxes. Really, how? Because you were in the legislature.
That's what
you never
about with
supported
the stay
any of this. Oh, the Stay and J program is a disaster.
So we're going to lower your taxes by half, but it's capped at $6,500.
Not only that, Ryan, but think about it. They're like, it'll go up to $6,500. So take the average senior. You're paying $10,000 in taxes. Now the state government says we're going to give you $5,000 back. But the town still has to get their 10.
Yep.
So I got to give 5 back to you. I got to give 5 to the town. The first year cost, they estimated to be $1.9 billion. Second year cost, $2.1 billion. So what's going to happen? You're going to lose all your other tax rebates is what's going to happen.
Yep.
And you're still going to lose seniors.
Well,
Why?
a good place we could find some money.
Are moving out.
A good place we could find some money for those seniors, though, is $7.2 billion spent annually on illegals in this state.
$7.2 billion on illegals. We spent in the last budget $6.2 billion on Medicaid. Now you ask these politicians in Trenton, they can't tell you how much of that is illegals. That's
I don't think they know all the moving pieces. I think they can focus on one area and that's it. They have no ability to see all the moving pieces. They're just fucking clueless.
Because they don't look for it. They're not asking questions. They're taking orders from backroom lobbyists. They're taking orders from major donors. They don't represent
How do we
the
strip
people.
the lobbyist out? To just get rid of their people?
You got to make them irrelevant. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to audit the health insurance companies. I want to know why you've got a couple of companies that essentially have a lock on our health system. I asked a good friend of mine who was in state government for many, many years. I said, explain it to me. Like, I have no idea about this. How does it really work? He said, well, you get into the state health plan and you pay your $20 copay, in some cases zero copay, depending on what level you're at. The doctor charges you $100 for that, and I'm dumbing this way down just to make a point. Doctor charges $100 for that visit. So let's say you pay your 20, insurance company pays the doctor 80. Now he's whole. You're out 20, okay, but that's your plan. Doctor's whole. Insurance company turns around and bills the state $200.
Yeah.
So that means that $100 visit is costing the taxpayers $200.
And if they don't
Makes
get
no
it,
sense.
they'll go and send you a bill directly to you
Of course.
to make
Of course.
you think that you have to pay this bill. And a lot of times you don't even have to pay that bill.
We've got to open it up to competition. We've got to eliminate a lot of the minimum standards, right? They try to scare people with this. Say, well, don't you want the best health care? I want to shop for my health care. I should be able to shop my health care across state lines. I should be able to say, I'm a 55-year-old
I should be able to shop for my education too.
Yeah, well, look, I'm a 55-year-old guy. I practice hot yoga 5 times a week. I've never been healthier. But I'd like to have some catastrophic coverage because some idiot could T-bone my car at a stoplight. That happens. So I understand. And my wife got into a car accident. A guy blew a stop sign and hit her car last year. And she had to the hospital. She broke her arm. It was, her mom was injured. She was in the car. Point is, you want to have coverage. God forbid you're going to be in a hospital stay. The challenge is, I'll give you an example. Chapter 78. I get this question a lot. Firefighters all upset about Chapter 78. You got your career firefighters, your volunteer firefighters. They're all running into the same burning building. Mm-hmm. Yet volunteers don't get their cancer screenings covered, but career does. Not fair. Chapter 78, what did that do? It said, okay, state workers and municipal workers and everybody working for the government, you're going to now pay a certain percentage of your health care. So the average private sector guy, Ryan, maybe you might say, That makes sense. These guys are having it. They got a nice salary. They've got the best health plan in the country. They ought to pay 15%. Here's the problem. Nobody looked at the fact that the cost of a monthly premium went from $1,000 to $1,800 for that single mom
just
raising
like
two
Obamacare.
kids. Disaster.
Yeah.
So I said, guys, why didn't you address bringing the cost down? It's the same thing with education. You got a bunch of Republican legislators saying, we're going to change school funding. We're not going to tie it to property value. We're going to tie it to income. And I'm like, time out. Why have none of you brought up restructuring pensions? Governor Scott Walker did it in Wisconsin, 2010, Act 10. They literally upended the entire system of how they pay pensions. What they did was they effectively converted everybody to a 403B. It was a defined contribution instead of a defined benefit. Very
Then
simple.
it goes into, hey, I'm pulling a public sector money into private money. Now I'm letting private bankers. You're
That's why you
doing
need
that.
school choice.
Yeah, school
That's why you
choice.
need
That's
school
what I was
choice.
bring it back to.
And we're going to do it. I'll tell you how we're going to do it. First.
Real quick, I want to bring it back to immigration.
Go.
So immigration, that's $7.2 billion
billion a year.
right? And you
Billion.
said there was 800,000 illegals here in Jersey.
They
that they
estimate, and I got this, there's a very specific report that was produced by Paul Kinitra, who's a member of the Assembly. He,
know
right
Paul.
after we went to the border, Paul's a good guy. He went to the border, spent a few days, and collaborated on this report that shows they estimate, I think it was 890,000 illegals in New Jersey.
So Trump
I
puts
think the number's higher.
Trump put some acts in place. I think it's probably higher. It's probably in the millions. Trump put some type of acts in place where he's going to rely on the states to go and deport people. Are you going to go give the full backing to the local police and sheriff departments?
I'm going to be in the parking lot with a bullhorn, directing those buses out of the parking lot to go pick them up. I've done...
Because that's why your health insurance is expensive, because we're giving free health care to everybody.
$6.2 billion in Medicaid expenses. And maybe a third, half of that is for illegals. It's outrageous. You got illegals coming, they get all kinds of free health care, and you've got folks that are working, unloading trucks that have to scrape together every last dollar to pay their rent, pay their mortgage. It's not fair.
And missing their kids, waitressing or waitering at night.
Number one, we're going to suspend, I'm going to declare a state of emergency on day one for public safety, and we're going to suspend bail reform. Cops have told me, I've sat with the FOP, the PBA, I know a lot of cops. I've been talking about police officers for many, many years.
I got questions from cops for you on this.
Good, I love it. So number one, we're gonna suspend bail reform, because you need the legislature to actually put back cash bail. But until then, we're going to suspend the practice now of the point system. Why? Because 82%, this is the estimate from law enforcement, 82% of the perps who get arrested are spun out before the paperwork is done. And I mean same day. It's a danger in our area. Number two, day one, I'm talking about 1201. Take the oath at 12, maybe it's 30 seconds a minute. 1201, executive order to rescind the 2018 sanctuary state. That's it. There is no sanctuary in New Jersey come January 2026 if you are an illegal alien, period, end of sentence. Number three, so you're now you've suspended bail reform, you've rescinded the 2018 sanctuary state executive order. Number three, and this is a big one, 2019, the Attorney General, Kabir Grewal, then had the Immigrant Trust Directive. This effectively handcuffed everyone, from schools to hospitals to law enforcement. You can't ask the question, you don't know who these people are. And that Immigrant Trust Directive has to be rescinded. So those three things are going to happen on day one. Then number four, we're going to work with the federal government to enforce federal detainer orders. So I think I'm the only candidate that has actually done ride-alongs with ICE. I've met with the guys in Newark. I know some of these agents. We've talked about it. And you go through Newark at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I ask the guys, where are the gangsters? Where's the fentanyl pushers? Where are the kingpins? They know. Like, that guy's over there.
They're on it.
But they can't do anything about it.
Their hands are tied.
Their hands are tied. So immediately that day, we're going to have local law enforcement and state troopers. We have right now, I believe we have somewhere around 3,100 state troopers. I'd like to expand the state trooper force up to 4,000. And
let's get
have them work directly with ICE.
And let's get in the right guys again. Let's make sure that police force is full of some badasses, not some like soft kid you get off the street. The guys that actually want to do the right thing by this country and enforce the law, they're like, fuck this shit, I'm not being a cop.
Ryan, here's the problem. They panic, right? So they're like, oh my God, recruiting is down, let's lower standards. Yeah. No. Make it the elite force that it is. It's already an elite force.
Because a dude rolls up on me and I'm like, this guy ain't going to do nothing if I got to go after him.
There's one, right?
I'm not going to do that, but I'm just thinking if I had to.
There's one standard that we are going to relax, and that is that if you come from out of state and you're a qualified uniform-wearing state trooper in another state, it should be even, right?
You're good
into
here.
New Jersey. That's right. You're good here. And right now you can't do that. And it's the same thing with EMTs, same thing with psychologists, these drug counselors. The practice of actually getting to be a police officer, to be a drug counselor, to be a teacher, all so onerous. The regulatory burden is so huge. We got to just cut through the red tape.
That's how they make the money.
That's how they make the money. We're going to starve government is what we're going to do. We're going to reduce it. Let me tell you one quick thing. Brett Schundler. I don't know if you remember Brett Schundler, mayor of Jersey City. And they were talking about this guy running for president someday. So I think the eagle got a little big, but he did a great job in Jersey City. First thing he did that first year was he froze government hiring. And what happened? Government reduced by 10% just on attrition. These guys, we're going to bring them all back to work.
Outflows are just crazy. Once you shrink that outflows, you can start to stack cash.
Why are the Department of Labor folks handling unemployment working at home?
Yeah.
Why are you working at home?
Yeah.
I got to hear your barking dog and your screaming kid while you're trying to process my claim.
Yeah.
It's
and
not
you're drinking
fair.
a martini by 12.
Come on, it's not fair. We're going to bring people back to work, but we got to clean up Trenton as well. And I'll tell you this, part of it is you can be a MAGA, strong, me, been with Trump since the escalator, but I still have a way of working with Democrats because I'm a common sense guy. So one of my first calls as governor is going to be to Reed Gucciora, who is the mayor in Trenton. Now, he is a left-wing liberal, but he wants the best for his city. I believe that. I've known Reed for a long, long time. So
probably a good guy.
He and I have already talked about how we're going to monetize the waterfront because there's a bar on one end, and then there's all this space, all these government buildings that are mostly unoccupied, right on the river. Like, we got to monetize that. We got to privatize that and bring business in. You need to bring in rateables, taxpayers, not government freeloaders.
Higher paying jobs so they can afford the housing. Right?
Yeah. It's how we're going to fix the energy problem. They talk about higher paying jobs with the wind. They're not talking about the fact that wind doesn't work, that it has a low 30s, high 20s capacity factor, according to the Energy Information Agency. It is absolutely the worst thing we can do.
What energy are you good with?
Gas, nuclear. I want to build 3 micro-nuclear plants. 3-point plan, micro-nuclear plants. We're going to get the pipe fitters and the plumbers back to work. We're going to restructure and reinvest in our natural gas infrastructure.
Was that Exelon? Was that owned down the Forked River?
Yeah. Well, you've got that. What you mean the old plant?
Forked River? Yeah.
Yeah. So we should be building micronuclear plants. We should be building natural gas electricity
and
generation
nuclear plants are not like the ones that went bad. The technology has come a long way.
The micro plant, it takes up, it's like a 2-car garage. I'm exaggerating, but it's small and it's underground. And you can power the whole state. But that's, so natural gas, nuclear, but here's something they're not talking about. Waste management. I've been following this company for many, many years. Waste management in Texas is harnessing the methane coming out of the landfills, and they are literally heating and cooling hundreds of thousands of homes.
We got a lot of waste management here in Jersey and New York.
We got a lot of waste to manage. Why aren't we, you see the vents everywhere, because they're just, all this gas is just going somewhere. Why don't we use it? Why don't we use it? And create a tax incentive for that company to come in. Franklin Township did this with water. They effectively privatized their water system. New Jersey American Water came in. The town was looking at a $15 to $20 million upgrade because they have problems with the water. We have the same problem in Camden, same problem in Newark, same problem in, you name a town. We have towns in New Jersey that still have wooden pipes.
The underground piping is pretty ancient.
Well, it leads me to another point about the drought, which I just want to cover real quick. But what they did was they said, look, you guys come in, make the capital investment, and you are responsible for the upgrade. So what did they do? They grandfathered everybody in. They're not going to have a rate increase for a number of years. It was no tax hike because it was no cost. They allowed New Jersey American Water to do the investment. What do they have now? New pipes, clean flowing water.
Yeah.
One thing, the governor, it was disgusting. They were crying about the drought. Oh, we're in danger. We went from 80%, which was our average landfill capacity this time of year, to 60%. So I called them out. I'm like, this is not, first of all, it's not a crisis. Fire, totally different. I got the leaves everywhere too. I understand that. But why aren't we looking at the root cause? The root cause is if you've got 80, 100-year-old pipes, what percentage of water is leaking out of those pipes every single time it flows? 20%, 30%? Our waste of water in this state, I'll bet it's one of the highest in the country.
On the West Coast too, the governor in California is redirecting the water that's coming down from the North, say Alaska and Canada, out to the ocean. Is anything like that go on here on the East Coast, that we're just not bringing down water?
That's a good question. We don't have the same capacity with the mountains that they have with the Rockies, but so I don't know the answer. I do know if we solved the waste and said, let's, instead of wasting 25%, waste 5%, maybe this time of year your reservoirs will be at 85%, maybe 90%. I mean, we should be able to survive 6 weeks without rain.
All right, I'm going to move you along just for time purposes. Another question. So we've spent all this money. You have all of the big banks out there talking about the insurance for the muni bonds. It's going to be really expensive come 2025. And a lot of debt is out there. Murphy spent a lot of money. How does New Jersey plan to handle that?
Well, we're going to have to refinance a lot of our debt. I mean, we're talking about more than $210 billion. But it's not just the debt that is the problem. It's the unfunded liabilities. That's what people are not talking about enough. They estimate with health benefits, you're talking about $175 billion in unfunded liabilities that will hit us regardless of if we could close government tomorrow and that's going to hit us. So
what's the total revenue brought in by New Jersey on an annual basis?
So we bring in our real estate tax revenue somewhere around $32-33 billion. And then I believe the number is somewhere around 20 billion.
Like 20 billion in income.
Somewhere around that, with the taxes. But you've got to stimulate growth. You've got to lower that real estate.
Well, you got to put those things on the waterfront. You got to incentivize these towns. And
well, I'll give you an example. There are companies out there, so they're worried about the bonds, and they should. But remember, they're going off of the mentality that we're going to have to continue to borrow.
Yeah.
Why should a municipality that's looking at an exorbitant cost of borrowing have to borrow when you've got a company like New Jersey American Water that will invest in your town? Why are we not talking to Waste Management?
He's not stroking a check to the right guy.
That's the problem. So it's they're going to talk about, and you're going to hear gimmicks. My opponents, Republican and Democrat, gimmicks. Here's how we're going to fix the fact that our bond rating is down, and we're going to raise it up. Like, no, why don't we change the game? Why don't we bring private companies in and work with them? Well, why don't we do that with NJ Transit? So one of my opponents, John Bramnick,
that train is disgusting.
I
wouldn't ride that train anymore.
It's gross.
Yeah, it's gross.
But it's just mismanaged. And the problem is that you get Republicans like Chitterelli and Bramnick that want to throw money at the problem. And I've said this. I said, guys, look, do we need capital investments? I think we need to invest about $6 billion in our transportation and energy infrastructure, without a doubt. How do you get that money? Well, first thing we're going to do is cut $1 billion out of the Rutgers budget. Why did they go in just the last 4 years from a $4.1 billion budget to 5.1, taking 24 cents on the dollar from the the New Jersey taxpayer?
For the coach.
It's outrageous, right?
Yeah.
So you got to first find the money. You save the money on Medicaid. You save the money on your state insurance plan. You save the money by implementing Act 10 and changing teacher pension. Now all of a sudden we've got money to deal with. Where does it go? Put it into infrastructure to create those jobs. Get the skilled trades back to work.
So I hear Trump and his team talk about Schedule F. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm a guy who's just a dude on the internet talking shit. So Schedule F is some type of legislation that lawyers will write up that essentially can fire overtime a federal worker. Is there something like that we can implement in New Jersey to get rid of the FAP?
Federal government, you got to go back to 1888 and the Pendleton Act. And it basically created this created the permanent civil bureaucracy. There are no such restrictions.
Or you go back to 1913 when they took over the...
Well, if you talk about the income tax, you talk about a million different things, right? But the point is that if you're talking strictly about government, you've got to have a smart governor who will actually act on this. So you implement a hiring freeze. Now you're going to lose numbers by attrition. I don't think we have to get overly creative. I think we have to start hiring managers and department heads who are not beholden to special interests, but are beholden to doing the job. The model is what Trump is doing. You put a guy, Kash Patel, in, heads are going to roll. This guy is going to start firing people. There's no question. People will be prosecuted.
They're going to quit before he goes.
Well, they're saying that. They're like, RFK is bad for the bureaucry. Yes, he's bad.
Of course.
So is Jay Bhattacharya. So I want to look at the role of government differently. You know, you got Chitterelli out there saying, we're going to cap your taxes at 1% of home value. Well, it's a stupid idea. They tried it in California, it failed. The cost of living in California is some of the highest in the entire country. Their debt's out of control. You want to talk about debts and bond ratings and everything else, the cost of borrowing money? And people get scared because they're like, oh, now we can't invest in capital projects. Well, what if we could? What if we shifted $1 billion from Rutgers and invested in career and technical education and then used that money for a tax credit to hire away a company in Ohio and bring them to Jersey? You know, why aren't we looking at Newark as an enterprise zone to say we're going to have no corporate business tax, none, zero it out for 10 years.
Drive-in companies that are in New York City that are paying an arm and a leg.
Change everything.
Just hop over the harbor.
Yeah. But we got to hire
How
more
about we
cops.
just take $3 billion from the illegal immigrants? Just 3.
Well, if you look at that cost, let's say that cost is added up on all the related services. You're not just going to take $7 million and put it over here, but you might be able to take $2 billion.
That's right, $2 billion. Get
Right.
$2 billion, $3 billion.
Same thing with Medicaid. You're not going to eliminate that cost. You might be able to get it down to $5 billion. You might be able to get $1 billion out of Rutgers. Now you have $4 billion. What can you do with that? You change the world with that.
So talking about services, and I want to talk about women for a minute. So there's a lot of soccer moms out there that maybe would never get an abortion. They're happily married.
Yeah.
They don't plan to have any more kids. But the last thing I want to do is hear you or I, as a politician,
Lecturing them. Yeah.
about you can't have your reproductive rights.
So here's the thing.
Where do you stand on that?
I'll say 2 things. Number 1, I'm pro-choice. Pro-life. I'm pro-life. I've been unequivocal about this throughout my entire career. And I'm endorsed by New Jersey Right to Life, and I'm proud of that endorsement. That said, when the verbiage changed from pro-life to pro-choice always sounded better. And I say this, we ought to be talking about a legitimate choice. Abortion is not going away in New Jersey. There's not going to be a time when the legislature puts up a bill. My God, I can't imagine they're even going to restrict it, let alone
Because you see these women like
ban it.
extremely worried and upset.
But they're being fueled by the media that is being fueled by the Democratic narrative machine, because you're not going to lose. Abortion's not illegal anywhere. Nobody's not able to have access to abortion. But here's the question. We're not offering women an actual choice. If you are pregnant and alone in New Jersey, you have one choice, abortion. Because this woman that has no relationship with her family, that's been tossed out, maybe it was an abusive boyfriend, where do they?
Simple answer. If you win as governor, will women still have the right to go get an abortion?
Yes.
Simple as that. We can move on to the next thing.
Good.
So back to Bush real quick. What was the biggest thing you took from Bush Sr.?
He was an insider. He was an insider who did not understand real people, and
He was just too elevated.
He was head of the CIA. He was an ambassador. He was removed. He was a government guy. The challenge with all of these guys, and honestly, Chitterelli is very similar to George Bush.
What other roles has Jack played? And I really don't know, and I'm not coming at Jack, but what other roles has he played in government?
I mean, he was an assemblyman. He was a freeholder. At the time, you could say freeholder.
And what's up with someone who runs for governor? If you guys get to a certain level of threshold, you get like 2 times what you raised. That's kind of crazy.
Jack is effectively a professional candidate for governor. That's his job. He's been running for governor for 9 years.
Explain how the numbers work. So you raise $1 million.
So if I raise, the threshold right now is 580,000. Now we've raised $1 million, so we're way past the threshold.
And we're going to raise you some more.
Thank you. We want to get to the max. So the way the government does it, they say, okay, for every dollar you raise, once you hit this threshold, we'll give you $2. Now, that's the taxpayers paying this. So I will be the first to tell you, man, is that a broken system that I don't like? However, I'm going to take every dollar. Now, the reason, because I got to win in order to fix it. So I see it as Trump with the tax codes. The Democrats beat him up. You're not paying your fair share. You're this. He's like, I'm using the
your
rules
system
that you set up. Yeah. So we're going to do the same thing. But the way it works is you raise your money, you then get matching funds. And the matching funds have to be spent in a certain way. But there is a whole professional political class of pollsters and pundits.
That's how they make their money.
It's how they make their money. So Jack has effectively, for 9 years, kept this organization of political backroom professionals well-fed, well-paid, and on to the next job. He didn't have to win last time. He didn't have to win this time. And he's not going to win this time because He's been in politics for 35 years.
But how does he not win? And this is just me looking at it. And again, same through the what happened in 2020 with Trump.
Yeah.
The people who are set up in the system have it set up so good. To give them credit, they're excellent at it.
Yeah.
So this guy has been in, with Christie's camp and everybody in this state for a long time.
Yeah. How has he not won?
How has he not won already?
He has no relatability to average people. He
What's his background? What did he do?
He was an accountant. He had an accounting firm. He made a ton of money selling his
That's
business.
his problem. He's an accountant.
No.
You ever try to talk to an
You'd think that it would be you'd think it'd be a value, but his accounting background did nothing while he was in the legislature. The debt got higher, the budget got higher, taxes went up. I mean, my God, we got too many accountants and lawyers. Yeah. Look, I'm a Marine. I'm a business guy. I own and I started during COVID, a film company. We've produced films for Lifetime Television, and what a cool experience, and working with, and I spent a lot of time managing P&Ls, millions of dollars, and dozens of employees working for Jim Weichert. I was an executive in the real estate business. I'm still a broker in a number of states. I've been on the line as a sales guy.
So where's real estate going? I'm just looking for a reference
real estate's going to be
point.
great in this state because we're going to make New Jersey affordable again.
People
we're
want to
make
stay
New
here.
Jersey livable again. They want to stay.
How great is
They
the
can't afford it.
topography of Jersey? It's gorgeous. Look, I'm sitting on this, 4.5 acres, surrounded by 1,000 acres of green acres. We'll talk about what the town did there, but
we don't have enough time to talk about the disaster of the open space.
It's 8:41. You got to go soon.
All right. The open space was a complete debacle. What we should have been doing is incentivizing farmers. Yeah. That's what we ought to do. I have toured all these farms.
Itself. There used to be a ton of farmers here. Two major questions I want to go over. It's 8:40 and you got to go by 9.
Okay.
Where do you stand on vaccine mandates for children that are going to public schools in New Jersey? Because that's a big one for the whole crew that
we
I
have
hang out with.
We have two things. Number one, we need school choice, because we need parents to be able to have a legitimate choice, and we accomplish that with health education savings accounts. We have them for health. We need it for education. Number two, we need to bring in charter schools. And my answer is I am against the mandates. Let me say that.
Right.
But not everyone. Look, we know. You go back. I'm vaccinated for whatever the 6 vaccines.
I have everyone too. Whatever. It was.
I have every
12.
reason to trust that wasn't some profit-making scam. Polio and measles. Fine. Set a minimum standard for that. But I want to know why we are mandating all of these other shots up to a point where the regimen is something like 72.
Did you get the card? Have you looked at the
They want to make it
trifold?
35 before you're 2 years old.
Yeah, it's wild.
So here's what I think. I think private schools should be able to make their own decisions, period. Micro schools, their own decisions, obviously homeschools. I also believe charter schools should. And people get mad and they bristle at that because they're like, well, it's taxpayer money. I'm like, hold on a minute. A charter school will be able to educate a kid all the way through graduation and potentially college or into a career for about 1/3 to 2/3 of what the public school is doing.
I never thought I would say my kid would be homeschooled because I thought that was for wackos.
Yeah.
I really did.
You had your tin hat on.
A tin hat on,
Yeah,
like bad. Yeah. And now I'm starting to look at what's going on in the school system. The craziest.
Right.
Will you pull back some of the restrictions on what they're doing to these pods and these homeschools?
So here's where I disagree
they're
with
going after them.
Here's where I disagree with some libertarians and Republicans and conservatives. I want to empower the Department of Education in New Jersey. Forget about federally. I don't think the feds.
If you strip out the corruption,
you got to have people in the Department of Education that have one mission: protect education.
Kids, yeah.
Right now, they're pushing a climate change agenda, which is just complete garbage. That's how we ended up with the EV mandates, which we're going to eliminate on day one. It's absolutely, ridiculous that we are going to have a mandate on what you can buy. When it comes to vaccines, how about we have the stakeholders? How about the governor of New Jersey invites Jay Bhattacharya, RFK, and Pfizer to sit down and have a reasonable conversation. What do children actually need to protect other children? Because that's what it's really about. The reason parents get scared is they've been sold a bill of goods that somehow my not getting the COVID shot endangers you.
Yep.
And they know that's complete and
false.
utter garbage. Yeah. So I am a thinker and a doer. And I want stakeholders to have a conversation. Why can't I have a conversation about, you just said it, reproductive rights, and say, why don't we create a choice? So if you want to have the baby, you're actually protected and supported in having the baby. You want to have an abortion? Nobody's taking away that right. Why can't we have a choice when it comes to vaccines, medical care? I mean, and this was the problem with Chitterelli and why he lost in 21. He lined up to take his shot. He lined up with his mask on, and he had his customized mask and all. He bought into
He tried to ride the fence.
He tried to
should have got on Trump's back.
Look, let's face it. He's a guy that supports and still supports licenses for illegals. This is a Republican candidate for governor.
7.2 billion, just so you listeners.
And we
7.2
know,
billion.
once you get a license, you blend right in.
Next question.
Shoot.
Education. You have the critical race theory.
Gone.
I can't
Go on,
stand
we're gonna
that.
teach
I'm not a
history.
racist kid. Yeah, I'm white. I didn't grow up around a ton of blacks. I'm not racist. Stop telling me I'm fucking racist. I'm tired of it.
Stop talking about race.
These kids
Why
don't
aren't
know.
we
My
talking
kids don't know anything of color. They don't know a thing.
Why are we not talking about American greatness? Why are we not talking about the greatness of a country that was founded with a constitution that gave rights to human beings so they could live peacefully, coexist, and prosper? Why are we not talking about the fact that we eradicated slavery?
Yeah.
Slavery still exists.
Yeah.
The Middle East, Africa, China.
Bad, bigger than ever.
Bigger than ever. Yet we are told that somehow America is bad. We are being eaten alive
Slavery
by
does
this
exist.
cancer.
Slavery
of
does exist in
left-wing
America,
politics.
and it's from the government, because they make all of these middle class people, and people don't get to a certain level
Well, you're
of
a
income.
slave to debt.
You're a
You
slave
could
to
argue
debt,
that.
man.
I want to see a time where we give another choice issue. Let's give kids a choice. Why do they all have to go to college?
Yeah.
Why aren't we celebrating those that go into the military, those that go to CTE and get a plumber's license, go become an apprentice? I have talked to the skilled trades about this. I'd like to have an apprentice program.
And they need them.
Starting at 14. 14 years old, we should be identifying those kids that like to tinker, those kids that have, a little bit of extra capacity. I'm not good as a mechanic. I've got my skills. That's not one of them. But there are some kids that they're really good at it, and they can go make a nice six-figure living without a college degree.
They can make a multi-seven-figure
That's right.
as a business
We
owner.
should be encouraging entrepreneurship, but it all starts, Ryan, it all starts with teaching our children that America is the greatest country on the face of the earth.
Stop dividing us.
We have to stop being divided on identity politics. This whole gender thing. They made it up. There's no such thing as a trans kid. There are kids that struggle. There are kids that act out. Yes, there are some that actually have a mental condition called gender dysphoria. Why is gender affirming care not to affirm your biology and help kids deal with who they are?
Do you think kids
We don't do it.
You think kids are born as cats or dogs?
They are not.
Yeah.
There are two genders. No. You're a male or you're a female. No. And
I thought that was pretty easy one.
Yeah. You said you were going to throw some hardballs at me. That's, kids are not dogs. Yeah. Kids are not cats.
Yeah. Are they killing the dogs?
I was going to say, you want to talk about the Haitian immigrants? You know what's funny about that? So for 2 weeks, we were talking about whether Haitian immigrants in Ohio were eating pet dogs and pet cats. I don't know what the story is. I know it happened a couple of times, and they were certainly killing the ducks. But it finally got us to have a conversation on why did a 40,000 person town
they were trying to bring light to
illegals.
Yeah, they were trying to bring light to all the illegals that flew in.
Of course. Look, 8 to 900,000 here. Are there some kids that were here that were brought here? But tons. But how did the federal government lose? What did they lose? 300,000 kids? No idea where they are. I'll tell you where they are. They spend time at the border. They're being trafficked into the sex trade. They're being trafficked into the drug trade. We have a horrific human crisis.
They're being trafficked into Hollywood. And
Republicans who support any of these programs that are pushed by the Democrats only further endanger women and children who are being trafficked and abused, raped and killed as they come across the border. They are truly the slaves of the cartel. And we got to stop it, and you stop it by ending the sanctuary, enforcing the law, and empowering law enforcement.
Did Epstein kill himself?
How could he have possibly killed himself?
I don't know. You tell me.
The cameras were down for 30 minutes.
Odd.
The guards were asleep at the right time.
Yeah.
No, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
How many? Somebody said the other day. Nobody has what was the number, like 300 friends who commit suicide.
Yeah.
Or whatever the Clinton number is at now.
Yeah.
Look, government is an institution that needs to be wrestled away from the bad actors. In New Jersey, maybe they're not as bad as some of the folks we've had in the White House over time, but they're bad. And when your elderly grandparent dies in a nursing home and you're told that you have to stay away, you can't even have a funeral, and by the way, your business is going to be bankrupt, but the big box store is going to stay open. Government in New Jersey has killed them.
And if you challenge us, we're going to fine you $15,000 a day, like that guy Ian Smith and that Jim.
They killed him.
They moved down to Florida.
it can never happen again. We are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And we have lost the for the people, for sure.
People want to donate to your campaign, learn more about Bill Spadea and what you're about.
SpadiaForGovernor.com, F-O-R, SpadiaForGovernor.com. Join us. I mean, we're taking volunteers. We have sign distribution centers. We are engaging the public. You know, my political background over the last couple of years, we started the Common Sense Club, 150,000 members now, and elect common sense. We're raising, and now I say we because I'm still
it's a PAC,
emotionally attached to it, but I had to resign from the board to be a candidate for governor. But raising more than $100,000 a month, and you know where the money's going? To help local campaigns. My wife Jody and I have literally knocked on doors for dozens of candidates over the past 2 years. We spent our weekend, Saturday and Sunday, knocking on doors to do and reverse what the Democrats did 30 years ago, and that is build this state from the ground up. Now, to finalize that deal, we got to put a capstone on it and elect a governor that understands the plight of real working people.
Listen, what you're doing is not easy. It's selfless. It's extremely hard to go and run for government, to turn around and help the next guy or girl in line. I've experienced that through wanting to turn around and help business owners, and sometimes there's just certain people that don't have what it takes. So I commend you for what you're doing.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate
I'm going to support you. Fireside's community is going to support you. And this is a great chat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Let's go win.
Yeah, let's go win.